Hi, my name is Jason Fenwick. I'm the director of the Business Advisory Group at Windsor Wyeth & Ward. Windsor Wyeth & Ward is a full-service business advisory firm dedicated to growing your business. Thanks for joining us tonight for our Business Mastery series entitled The 5 Phases of a Successful Startup. Tonight we're going to be discussing Phase 5, development of diversified set of exit strategies. But before we get started, let's review the first 4 phases. Phase number 1 is strategic planning. Strategic planning is where you put together your startup plan, your business plan, your expense and revenue projections so that you can fully plan out where you want to take your startup. It answers the questions who, what, when, where, why, and how. Phase 2 is funding. Funding is where you go out into the marketplace and get the necessary capital funding, cash reserves, and potential investors that you're looking for. Both bankers and investors are going to be looking for the same thing. They're going to want to know that you have a handle on your expense projections, that you understand when your expenses are coming in, how they're coming in, and whether or not they'll grow, whether they're fixed or variable. They're also going to have questions about your revenue projections. Here they're looking for tight projections. They would rather that you under forecast than give them an over forecast where the numbers are highly inflated. Next, we're looking at the initial rollout phase, the rollout of the startup initiatives. Most people don't realize that the startup phase is different from the fully operational phase. During the startup phase, you're testing out your systems, you're beta testing your marketing and your sales strategies. It's kind of like a preseason NFL football game where you can put on the pads, get out on the field, and check out your plays and the different systems you have. There you're able to adjust on the fly. You're able to come back to the locker room, make some adjustments, review tape, figure out what you want to do for the rest of the season. Preseason doesn't count as much as the regular season, but it's very important because it's an introduction to the marketplace. We recommend that you do a soft opening. That way, if there are mistakes that are made or if there are things that need to be fixed and changed, you haven't fully geared up. The next phase is fully operational phase. The fully operational phase is where you grow value both for the company, its clients, and the shareholders. That's where you gain market share by driving your product or service fully into the marketplace. This is where the client or customers gain recognition both of your product, your branding, and the direction you're looking to go in the marketplace. The fully operational phase is definitely where the growth occurs and the value becomes apparent both to the marketplace and to the investors. The next phase is the development of the exit strategies. We recommend developing a diversified set of exit strategies that take into account multiple avenues and opportunities. So let's get started talking about that. Before we get too deep into it, we have to explain what your options are for exit strategies. Everyone's going to exit their business. It's either going to be voluntary or involuntary. Voluntary is where you sell the business, you do an IPO or initial public offering, you merge the business, or you set up a succession plan for the heirs to take over the business, or you bring in outside management to run and manage the business after you step out of management. Those are your options on the voluntary side. Involuntary is just that. We're all going to die. We all may get sick or infirmed, and your particular interest will pass to your estate. For the purpose of tonight's discussion, we're going to talk about the voluntary side because we want everyone to plan for how they want to exit out of their particular business. The first thing we want to talk about is just the concept of exiting out of the business. Sometimes we run into clients who say one of two things. One, they're married to their business. They say, I'd never sell my business, ever. I don't care what anyone would offer. We discourage that type of thought. Everything's for sale. We're all stewards of our assets and wealth for the period of time that we're here. And there may be times to get out of a particular business and hand over the reins to someone who can grow it even larger and then take that money and take care of your family, relax, retire, and enjoy life. The second thing that we hear people saying is they don't know what their company's worth. They started it from nothing and they just pick a number out of the hat and say, well, if I had to sell it, this is what I would sell it for. We discourage that type of thinking. Most people don't realize that valuation of companies is a pretty exact science. I mean, there's some variables, but there is a way of determining what your company's worth. And we advise you to seek that out before you enter into any discussions about selling the company or negotiations regarding that. And then lastly, we also like to set people's expectations. With the onset of media and people's interest in CNBC, Bloomberg, Shark Tank, the Wall Street Journal, everyone thinks that there's just a huge pot of money sitting out there waiting for them to come along and collect. And that's true in some cases. But for the most part, growing a business and selling a business is a science. There is a methodology to it, and there are ways to maximize the value of your particular company. So let's talk about the preparation that goes into it. The very first thing we want to talk about is the time frame. We like to talk to a customer a minimum of 9 to 18 months before they make the decision to sell their company. If possible, we like to talk to them 18 months to 3 years before they sell it. And here's why. What your company sells for will be dependent upon its valuation. And there are certain things that we can do to prepare the company for going through this process in which we can maximize the value. One of the things we look at is the asset mix. What does the company own? Are there any divergent assets that don't go along with the core purpose of the company that maybe need to be spun off or sold or transitioned out of the company? Are there management issues that need to be quelled? Also, we look at the financials. Do the financials need to be cleaned up? Sometimes when you own a company, maybe you have your cars on there, your boats on there, your summer houses. Maybe your sister works for you, your 3 daughters work for you. All of these things are going to jump out when someone comes to acquire the company and they're doing their due diligence. And so it's better to start cleaning up and transitioning the financials over to a clean state, ready for valuation. The other aspect is management packages. Oftentimes, when you're thinking about selling your company, the first thing that comes to the mind of managers is, where do I stand in all of this? So you don't want to lose your key players because they know you're selling the company and they start looking for new jobs. And so sometimes it's necessary to put together management packages or bonus packages to retain the key people who are assisting at growing your business, so that there's stability for the new owners, or at least the appearance of stability until the new owners come in and decide what they want to do. When you're looking at evaluation, you're looking at some key factors in each individual industry. Oftentimes people come in with an inflated view of what their company is worth. Usually you can determine what a company's worth by looking at both not only its revenue, not only its expenses, but most importantly what the multipliers are in that particular industry. Different industries have different multipliers, meaning one industry may have a multiplier of 3 times EBITDA, which is earnings before taxes and depreciation. The other industry might have 4.6 times EBITDA. It just depends on what your industry is. That's where you need to bring in the professionals so they can have those discussions with you. Lastly, I want to talk about advisors. Oftentimes, a startup company has brought in advisors from the very beginning. And when they go to sell the companies, they may need different advisors from their current advisors. That's because the current advisors may be well versed in their particular company and how it was founded, what the processes were that are in place that built the company. But you need to bring in an outside, unbiased person who can look at the company and break it down for what it's worth in the open market. A lot of times, current advisors are married to the company philosophy, and they believe so much in the company that it's hard for them to step back and take an unbiased view. They're also a part of the process. meaning that if there were problems in the operations, problems in the finances, or just things that were done that weren't the most efficient means and manner out there, then they're a part of that process. And you really want someone who can take an unbiased view and kind of dissect the company down to its most basic core components, put it back together, and put a valuation together that maximizes its value. Oftentimes, current advisors and current management have an idea of where the company can go, but don't take into account other possibilities or alternatives. That all being said, this is a general overview of the exit strategy process. There are a lot more things that go into it. So when you're considering this, you need to bring in outside advisors. If we can help you with that, please feel free to reach out to us. We can be contacted at info@windsorwyeth.com. That's info at windsorwyeth. Or if you'd like to get on our list for other future upcoming webinars, events, boot camps, etc., you may do so by texting your name and contact information to 202-640-2466. That'll send you a link that will allow you to enter your information into our database. Again, that's 202-640-2466. As always, we appreciate you coming and attending our webinar. We look forward to working with you and also seeing you at the top. Have a great evening.